You can use any yarn and basically any hook because it's a made to measure pattern. So if you want to use a thinner yarn, you can just go with the hook size that is recommended. I am going to be using Red Heart, roll with it, the Melange. It's 100% acrylic, 5.29 ounces, 150 grams, 389 yards, and 356 meters for a adult size poncho that could fit anywhere from small to extra large. You will need 3 of these cakes. So that would be 3 times the 389 as far as yardage. So I'm going to be using this colorway. It's in Showtime. It's a very beautiful color. So you're going to take your yarn and your smaller needle if you are choosing to use 2 different size needles. So I'm using a 6 for this yarn. We're going to make a slip knot. Just make a circle and push the yarn up through that circle. And then insert your hook into the loop. And you're going to be chaining 4, 4, 4, 4 over and over and over again until you get to your wingspan measurement. And then you're going to chain an additional 3. So let's all start together here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I just did 2 multiples of 4 for 8. You keep going, pause the video, and you're going to chain 4 over and over and over again. So continue making your chains and hold it up to you, pull it out in front of you to make sure it's long enough, or use your measuring tape, and I will meet you back at the end. Okay, so I just did a multiple of 4 over and over and over again, and I just stretched out my hands, my arms in front, out to my side, and held it until I could reach one end of my fingertips and my hands outstretched and the other fingertips. So that is my measurement. And now we're going to add 3 chains. 1, 2, 3. So it's a multiple of 4 plus 3. Now, what we're going to do is we are going into the second chain from the hook with a half double crochet. So we're not counting this chain, that's this loop that's on your hook now. We're not counting that. We're counting 1, 2 V's down. And we're going into the second V with a half double crochet. And that one chain that we are skipping, that's in with the plus 3. So we're losing that one right now. Put a stitch marker right in that very first stitch that you just made. That is stitch number 1. So put your stitch marker in that very, very first stitch. That'll come in handy when we come around the corner. We're going to be putting a half double crochet into every stitch going down the row. Okay, and make sure you have your very first stitch marked. Okay, I just fixed my stitch marker so it just show a little bit better. So this is what it should look like right now. And we turned and we are heading back down. And for this row, we're going to just put a half double crochet into every stitch in your chain. And make sure you're not twisting your chain. So a good rule of thumb is to look for that bottom end, that bottom piece of the V, and just make sure it is straight. So if you ever get confused, just turn it until you can see that bottom loop of your V. That might help you if you're a beginner. And make sure you're going into, I like to not go into just the top of the stitch here. I like to go right down into the bottom of the stitch. So you're going right down into that center of the stitch, just like that. And this is a half double crochet that we're doing. So we yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch, pull up your yarn, yarn over. You should have 3 loops on your hook, pull through all 3, yarn over, and make sure you're only putting 1 stitch into each of these chains. So pause the video and continue making 1 half double crochet into each of these chains all the way to the end of your row. And I will meet you back just before we end the row. This is what it should be looking like. Okay, so I have been continuing adding half double crochets into every stitch. Okay, here's our last 2 stitches of this row. Okay, so make sure you get that very last stitch. Okay, and I like to just put a stitch marker in that very last stitch, and we also have one in our very first stitch. Those will come in handy. Okay, so we have our first stitch marked and our last stitch marked. Okay, we're still using our smaller hook or whatever hook size you are using for your yarn. Again, I just like to go down a half hook size just to make this border part. Okay, so we are going to chain 2 and we're going to turn our work, make a stitch right into that same first stitch. So that turning chain did not count. We're going to go in there with a half double crochet. Okay, so you can move your stitch marker up to designate that first stitch of your row. So put that stitch marker right at the top of your stitch there. So that's stitch number 1. So we are not counting the turning chain. We just made an additional half double crochet right into that very first stitch right there, right here. It's our first stitch, and we added a half double crochet and we placed a stitch marker. And now we are continuing to add 1 half double crochet into every stitch of this row. And there are timestamps if you want to skip ahead. Okay, so continue putting half double crochets into every stitch. Make sure that number 1 stitch is marked with a stitch marker. So pause the video and work on your own. Let me show you what that looks like so far. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to continue placing half double crochets all along this row, and I will meet you at the end. But I will show you later on in the video, I will show you where to stop for a scarf or to stop for a shawl. I'll be giving you some more information. But again, we are just following our wingspan measurement. So here's our last stitch right here. This is why we use stitch markers so we don't miss this stitch, because we do want this to be a multiple of 4. Okay, so there is our last stitch right there. And move that stitch marker up to that very last stitch that you just made. Okay, and this is what it should look like right at the end. Okay, and these 2 rows of half double crochet is going to be our border for our scarf and our rectangle shawl and our poncho. So when you have reached your desired measurement for the scarf, you will just end what you are doing and go back to this size hook and place 2 rows of half double crochet for your scarf. And then if you are doing your rectangle shawl, once you finish your measurement that we're going to do next for the rows with our larger hook, when you get to where you like that measurement, you're going to again change back to your smaller hook and do 2 final rows of this half double crochet. But for now, we are going to continue. We're going to bump up to a 6.5 for this tutorial. Again, you could be using different yarn and different sized hooks. It's all up to you. Okay, so we have finished our chain row and we did 2 rows of half double crochets. And we are going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and we're going to turn our work. And again, we have that stitch marked. And this chain 3 is going to count for our first double crochet of this row. So we're going to make a double crochet. We're not going to put it in this first stitch that we have marked because we are already counting that as completed with this chain 3, which counts as our first double crochet. We're going into the very next stitch, which is going to be right here, the second V, so that's our first V, and this is our second V right here. So we're going into the second V with a double crochet. And now we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to skip 2 stitches. Skip, skip. We're going into the next one with a double crochet. Then we're going to do a double crochet in the next stitch. And then we're going to chain 2, skip 2, go into the next stitch with a double crochet, and then we're going to do another double crochet in the very next stitch. And then we're going to chain 2 and go into, we're going to skip 2 and then 2 double crochets in the next 2 stitches, 1 each. So this is our pattern. So you are going to just continue making chain 2, skip 2, double crochet in 1 stitch, and double crochet into the next stitch. Okay, so just continue that pattern of 2 double crochets, chain 2, skip 2. This is what it should look like. So I will do a few more with you, and you can skip ahead if you want to. Skip 2, double crochet, double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet, double crochet, I'm going to do a few more here for anybody who needs the extra help here. Again, you can slow down the video in settings. So just continue doing 2 double crochets, chain 2, skip 2, 2 double crochets, chain 2, skip 2, all across your row, and I will meet you at the end. Okay, so I am just continuing on here. And you want to just look back every so often and make sure you are skipping 2 stitches here. It's very easy to just skip 1 stitch every now and then, or to put double crochets, 2 double crochets in 1 stitch. So make sure you're skipping 2 and then you're placing 2 double crochets in separate stitches. Chain 2, skip 2, double crochet, double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet, double crochet. Okay, and this should be the ending here. You should have 4 stitches at the end, and like usual we're going to chain 2 and finish our multiple. So we skip 2 here, that's the end of our stitch, and then we're going to be placing a double crochet in the last 2 stitches. So double crochet in this stitch and a double crochet right here in this last stitch, and we have marked it. So it's always good to use those stitch markers. Okay, so this is what the ending of your row should look like. Just like that. Let's move on to the next row. So we are going to chain 3 at the end of our rows in the center here. So we're always going to chain 3 once we are doing our pattern. So we're chaining 3 and turning. But if you're the type of person who likes to do a chain 2, when you are turning for your double crochets, then you can chain 2. You just want to be consistent. It's all up to you. It's personal preference. Okay, so our first chain 3 that we did before we turned our work, that is going to count as our first double crochet. Okay, and now we're going to place a double crochet into the next stitch right on top of this second double crochet here. So we're going right at the top of that double crochet stitch, and we're placing a double crochet right over it. And then we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to place a double crochet right over these 2 double crochets, right on top of those stitches. So going right here with a double crochet. That's what it's going to look like. And then you're going to place another double crochet right into the next double crochet stitch. You're just stacking them. So this is what it is going to look like. just like that. Okay, and we're just going to continue that pattern all the way across. And we're actually going to continue this up until, if you are making a scarf, you're going to stop this pattern when you have reached the measurement where you like your scarf to be. And then you're going to do your 2 half double crochet border rows. If you're doing your rectangle shawl, you're going to continue with this pattern up until you get to the measurement that you would like for your shawl. You can keep trying it on, decide the height to your shawl, and then you're going to switch to your smaller hook and do your half double crochet 2 border rows. But we're doing the poncho right now in this portion of the tutorial, and we're still using our larger hook. If you have changed hook sizes, so I'm using my 6.5, you can use whatever hook size you prefer. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to place a double crochet in the top of all of these 2 double crochets. Okay, just like that. That's what it should look like. So I'm going to do a few more. Chain 2, double crochet right on top of the first double crochet, and a double crochet right on top of the second double crochet. Okay, so this is what it should look like. Chain 2, double crochet in each of those double crochet stitches right here. This is what it should look like. So just continue doing these rows. And again, if you're working on a scarf, you stop whenever you have reached the measurement that you like for your scarf. If you're doing a shawl, just keep going until you've reached the height that you want for your shawl. And if you're doing a poncho, we are going to continue doing these rows until we have reached the measurement for our shoulder to our waist. So remember in the beginning where I had you measure from the shoulder to your waist, we're going to keep going until we get to that measurement if you're doing the poncho. So just continue now to get as many rows as you would like. If you're doing the poncho, then continue until your shoulder to waist measurement. Okay, so I just wanted to touch base with you and meet you up here at the end of the row. Okay, so I have done my double crochet. I've chained 2, and we're doing a double crochet into each of these double crochets. Chain 2, double crochet, double crochet. Okay, and then we're chaining 2. We're at the end of the row, and we have our last double crochets here from the previous row. So we're going to place 1 double crochet into each of those stitches. Here's our last one, so go right into that top V with a double crochet. So this is what it's going to look like at the end of this row. Okay, so we are just going to continue, and we are going to chain 3, or if you prefer to do chain 2s, you can just be consistent, but in the pattern I am going to call it a chain 3. So we chain 3 and turn our work. and we're going to place a double crochet right over that second double crochet. So that first chain 3 counted as our first double crochet into the first double crochet from the previous row, just like that. And now we're going to chain 2. Okay, so after we have made that double crochet into the second double crochet there, we're going to chain 2. We're going to place a double crochet right over each of these double crochet stitches. So 1, 2, this is what it will look like. So I'm going to do a couple more. Going right into these 2 stitches. Do a couple more for you. And this is what it should look like. Okay, so you're just going to continue on your own. And depending on what project you're working on, you're just going to keep going until you get to the measurement, whether you're doing a scarf or a rectangle shawl or a poncho. Okay, I am just checking in with you here on this tutorial. So I am still going ahead and making my poncho, but I just wanted to let you know that if you are making the scarf, then once you have gotten to the measurement that you like for your scarf, if you want it this wide, then you can just switch back to your smaller hook. If you're using a different size hook, a smaller hook, and you're going to chain 2 and turn and then do 2 rows of your half double crochet, and that will finish your scarf. And then you can just add fringe to the ends of your scarf. That's optional, and I will show you how to do the fringe at the end of the video. So if you want to see how you do the fringe, you can just click on the timestamp in the description, and that will fast forward you to adding fringe to your scarf. But it's all up to you how wide that you want your scarf, meaning this portion going across here. So you just decide if this is the width that you want your scarf, and if it is, then you can just add your 2 rows of your border row, your half double crochet, and then your scarf will be finished. And I think it is so beautiful. I am going to keep going, and then if you are making your rectangle shawl, then you will just keep going until you get to the measurement that you're happy with your shawl. And then the same thing, you're going to switch to your smaller hook, chain 2, turn, and do 2 rows of your half double crochet, and then add fringe if you want fringe to the sides of your shawl. So very versatile. But I'm going to keep going. I'm actually making this for Karen in Ohio. She is purchasing this, and she wants this as a poncho with no fringe. So what I'm going to do is just keep continuing until I get to the measurement that she has given me for her length from her shoulder to her waist. She wants it to be 19 inches. Once I reach that measurement, I'm going to come back to you and show you how I do the neckline and then continue and finish this as a poncho with no fringe, but I will be showing you my sample that I made for myself, and I'm going to show you how to do the fringe on the poncho. And I have continued doing rows until I have gotten to the measurement that I need. So I'm going to be showing you how I do the neck. As soon as you reach a measurement that you are happy with, if you're doing a shawl, if you're happy with the height of your shawl, then you can just switch to your smaller hook and do 2 rows of your half double crochet for your border, and you will be finished with your shawl. So that's how you do the shawl portion. And this is for Karen, and Karen wants hers 19 inches tall. So I have reached 19 inches. And so what we are going to do, if you have taken your neck hole measurement, and I am going to just put a stitch marker just on that last stitch that I did, because I do not want to lose that stitch off my poncho. So take a measurement on your neck for the measurement that you want your neck opening to be. You can make it as small or as large as you want to. So just hold your measuring tape up to your neck, your shoulder area, and decide how wide across you want your measurement. That's your neck measurement. And it doesn't matter what side you are working on, just the row that you just ended on. That's where we're going to be folding this in half. So you're going to be folding this the long way. Okay, here's our fold. And the poncho is long like this, and we're folding it in half. So we're folding the wingspan in half, the wingspan measurement. And you're just going to want to line it up pretty well. So just line up your little checkers here, your little holes, to make sure that your rows are all evened up. So just take a second to just sort of even everything out and make sure everything is even. And what we're going to do is divide our neck opening by 2. So my neck opening is 16 inches, so that half of that is 8. So I'm going to measure 8 inches from the fold, and I'm going to mark this area right here with some stitch markers. Okay, so take 2 stitch markers, and you're just going to mark inside your double crochets here. So you're going to just lay your tape measure, and wherever it falls closest to this stitch right here where we did 2 double crochets together, put your stitch marker there. Okay, and then you're going to count from the end 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mine's 7 in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because we want it to be even. And then put another stitch marker right underneath it on the other side of your shawl, so it's folded here. Okay, so this is going to be our neck opening. And then what we're going to do is go back to where you just finished crocheting, and we did not finish fasten off. This is going to be one complete piece. And we're just going to continue our pattern that we have been doing up until we get to our first stitch marker. And then what we are going to do is we're going to count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You're going to count all of your stitches going across. And you're going to, when you get to this stitch marker, right after that stitch right here, these 2 double crochets, you're going to chain the amount that you come up with when you counted, and then you're going to do a double crochet to connect to the other first double crochet stitch over here. So we're doing what we have been doing up into the first stitch marker, and then we're chaining all the way to this one and connecting with a double crochet, and then we're going to continue our regular stitches right here. So I will do that with you. And again, this is if you're making the poncho. So we're doing a chain 3 and turning. I'm just going to call it chain 3. Turn your work as normal, just as you have been doing. And we're just going to continue with the same pattern. So we're putting our double crochet on top of the second double crochet here, just like that. And then we're chaining 2, and then we're doing our double crochets over our previous row's double crochets. chain 2. So we're just doing our pattern as normal. So continue doing your pattern just as normal until you reach your first stitch marker, and I will join you then. Measurement when I am counting stitches is 54 that I need to put in. So we are crocheting just as normal, and we're going to just do our last double two crochets here. So we're putting 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets right over our previous row here. Okay, so you make your last 2 double crochets right there, right over these double crochets, and then you're going to count all of these stitches to your next stitch marker, and it's really easy because you can just go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, so mine is 54, so I'm going to chain 54. Okay, so I did 54. Okay, and without twisting your chain, so just make sure your chain is not twisted, loop over your hook and put a double crochet right there. And that's going to connect this as a double crochet. And just follow your chain along just to make sure that it is not twisted. So you can just look at it, it's not going to be that long. Okay, and we have connected with a double crochet right over where we have marked with the stitch marker where we needed to connect. So we're going to do 1 more double crochet, second double crochet. And then we're just going to continue the pattern because we are on the other side of our neck. So we're just going to keep continuing the pattern until we reach the end, and I will meet you at the end and join up with you there, but you're going to have your neck opening here just like that, and keep continuing on until you get to the end of the row, and I will meet you then. Okay, we are approaching the end of this row, so we're just going to do it just like we have done all of our other rows. There's nothing new here that we're doing at the end, so we're just going into those last 2 double crochets here. Right at the top here, that top of that chain. Okay, we're doing the same as we always have. We're just going to chain 3 and turn. So chain 3 and turn your work. And then everything is going to be still again the same. So we're just going to continue the same pattern that we have been doing. So you're going to place a double crochet in the top of that second double crochet, just like that. Chain 2. And you're just going to continue along just as normal. And then as soon as we get close to that neckline, I will join you again. So continue with your row. So just continue as normal until you reach that first, until you reach where we have our neckline started. And then I will meet you back here. Okay, so we are approaching our neckline area. And we're just coming up to it as normal, putting our stitches right over the previous row. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, this is our last 2 double crochets. We're just going to do as normal and put our double crochets right over those. And then we're just going to continue this pattern. Chain 2. Okay, and we're going to skip 2 chains here, and we're going to try to make sure that it's not twisted. So just do a double check to make sure it's not twisted. Make sure your chains, your V's are facing you. This would be the back of the chains. We're going to make sure the front of our chains are facing us, just like that. Okay, and we're going to skip 2 because we've already chained 2, so we're going to skip 2. And then we're going to place 2 double crochets right here in this chain, just normal, just as we would if we were doing this normal pattern. We're just working into this chain. I'm trying to work underneath this camera, so that's why it's so awkward for me. Okay, so then we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to skip 2 chains. Make sure they're facing you. That if they're not facing you, then you're twisting it. So just turn your chain if you need to make sure your V's are facing you, and that way they won't be twisted. And we're going to place 2 double crochets in the next 2 chains. So it is going to look like this. Okay, and then we're going to chain 2, skip 2 chains. And again, make sure your chains are facing you and they're not twisted. So just make sure they're facing you. We're going to skip 2 chains, and then we're going to place 2 double crochets in the next 2 chains. I like to go right down in the center. And then after you make your chain, just make sure that you're going in the right chain. All right, and then we're going to put our next double crochet in the next chain, just like that. Chain 2, skip 2 chains, skip 2 chains, and put 2 double crochets in the next 2 chains. It's going to look like this. Chain 2, skip 2 chains, and you're going to put 2 double crochets in the next 2 chains. Okay, just like that, just like how we have been doing. Chain 2. And you're going to continue this all the way across this chain. Chain 2, skip 2, and make sure you keep making sure that your chain is not twisted. So if you ever think it's twisted like this, just turn it so it's facing you. And I will meet you at the end of this chain. Okay, we are approaching the next portion where we have connected for our neck, and this is our neck opening right here, and we're just continuing with our pattern. Just turn your chain so it's facing you. Do your double crochet stitches, and you should have 2 stitches. You should have this space where you have 2 empty chains before your set of double crochets. That's what we want. So chain 2 just as normal, and then we're going to just continue right here with our double crochets. And if for some reason you have messed up your count, don't worry about it. Just fix it. Just put your 2 double crochets here and everything will be fine. Okay, so this is what your neckline should look like. Okay, so can you see here where we have our neckline? So all we did was take our neck measurement, fold our poncho in half, and then measure half from the folded corner, and then mark our stitches here. And then we have just crocheted as normal going here. When we reach this stitch marker, we chain the number here, and these are really easy to count because it's just 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So we marked our other space here, and then we just crocheted our following row into this chain. Okay, so do you see how that is right there? That's our neck opening. And now we have reached the other side. And if anybody had any problems, let me know in the comments, because then I can help you figure out what you did and try to help you. That should be the exact measurement as this one, because we were just counting these stitches. And again, they're very easy to count because we have 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So it's not like you have to count each individual stitch. And then here's your neckline. Easy peasy. Okay, but if you did have problems, let me know what they are, because then I can help you. And then I can know what people are having problems with, and then I can address them and help you guys. And so we are just continuing on as normal here. So we're just doing our stitches as normal. This is how that connection should look. And we're just going to continue now just as we have previously on all of our other rows, because we're now going to be crocheting into the other side of this chain, or the other side of these stitches here, just as normal. Now we're working on the other side of our poncho, and just continue as normal. And you're going to want to count how many rows you did on this side of your poncho, and you're going to make sure that you have the same amount of rows on this new side of your poncho. All right, so there's no seam, There was nothing to sew together, and everything is going to be just as we have been doing. Okay, so I am going to get to the end of this row, and then I'm going to meet you at the end of the row. And then what I will do is I will get to this portion and just show you how easy it is just to crochet into this. So keep going, and I will meet you at the end of the row. Okay, so here we are at the end of the row, and we're doing it just as we always have been. We're putting a double crochet over the last 2 double crochets of the row, just like this. By now, you should know what you're doing. Okay, that's our last 2 double crochets of the row. We're going to chain 3, or the amount that you're doing. Some people like to chain 2 when they turn for a double crochet, and that's fine. Just do whatever you have been doing. And then we're going to put our first double crochet right over that second double crochet from the row before, just as we have been doing, just like that. We're going to chain 2. Okay, and just continue until you get to where we have our neckline, and then I will meet you then just to walk you through and just help you through that area. All right, so here is our first area right here, and we're just going to continue just as normal right into the bottom of the tops of these stitches. So there's nothing that we are changing or doing differently. We're just continuing to do the same stitches, but see, we're just making them now into this portion, and this is our neck hole. And then when we are finished with this, we're going to make a border around here so it looks nice. We're going to do, I think I did a row of single crochets around there just to make it look nice and finished. I'll have to look and see what I did on my poncho my poncho that I've already finished. Okay, so we're just going just normally just like we have been doing. And so what you're going to do is just make sure you count the rows that you have done on this side, so you know as many rows as you need to do, and just continue until both halves of your poncho have the same rows. So I hope that is clear to you guys. You're just doing your stitches here in this other side of this neck area. So just continue doing your stitches all along here, and there's nothing that you have to connect or anything because this is already connected here with the row we did before, so you're just making all of your stitches right here into all of these stitches that are here. And it should be really self-explanatory. So you're just continuing as normal now with your rows. So continue until you have the same amount of rows as the other side, and I will meet you then. Okay, so here's my last 2 double crochets. Okay, so I have as many rows on this side of the neckline as I do on the other side of the neckline. And what I'm going to do is just change my hook to my smaller hook. And I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to do 2 rows of the half double crochet border. So put a half double crochet into every stitch. So you can just go over your chain 2 with 2 stitches. That will equal the amount of stitches. So you're just going to continue going all the way across this row with half double crochets. So we're putting a half double crochet into each of the double crochet stitches, and then put 2 half double crochets right in that chain 2 space. And then when you get to the end of the row, you're just going to chain 2 and turn and do another row of half double crochets and then fasten off your work. So just pause the video and do your half double crochets, and then I will meet you at the end of this row just to help you turn your row. So pause the video and I'll meet you at the end of this row. But this is how it looks so far. Okay, and we are at the end. Let's see, I'm gonna do this one. And this one. Okay, so once you finish this whole row of half double crochets, this is what it's looking like for our border. And again, if you are doing the shawl, you would have just not done the neckline and just continued until you were happy with the height of your shawl, and then you would change to your smaller hook and do your 2 rows of border stitches. Okay, so at the end of the row, we're going to just chain 2 and turn. Okay, so we've turned our work. And again, now we're putting a half double crochet into every single stitch. So that one that we turned, I'm going to count that, and I'm just going to go into the next stitch, but it really isn't, it's just personal preference at this point. But I'm just counting that turning chain as a stitch and just making a half double crochet into the next stitch, and then just 1 half double crochet into every stitch along this row. Okay, so your last row is going to look like this. Let me put it down for a second, take a photo. So just continue putting your half double crochets all along this row, and I will meet you at the end of the row. So just continue your border row, and if you need to steam your final border rows to flatten them out, you can. It's all up to you. Okay, so that's our last stitch right there. And then I'm going to make 1 further chain, cut my end, pull it through. And then I'm going to check and see, okay, so this is the front. So now you're going to want to weave in your ends. So you take your yarn needle and you're going to find the wrong side of your work and weave in your ends. So just weave in without it showing on the front side, your tail, and then you're going to skip a stitch and go back through. Again, we're only going on this side of the work, we're not going all the way through, and then skip another stitch and go back through again. All right, so you went back and forth 3 times on the back side of your work. Cut your end, and then you'll probably have an end on the other side too. I think I might have weaved in mine when I first started. Okay, so again, the person is not wanting fringe on this. Let me give you some measurements while we're here. Okay, so I used 2 complete cakes, and again, I was using the Red Heart roll with it, and they were 389 yards, 356 meters per cake. And this is what I have left of my 3rd cake. So if I was going to add fringe, then I would use this for the fringe. If you're making anything larger, you might need a 4th cake. It depends on the size that you make, and this is made to measure. And let me count the rows that I did. So I did 5, 26, 27, 28, 29. Okay, so I did 28 rows of our pattern, and then I did 2 additional rows on each side of the border stitch. And let me give you some measurements. Okay, so my wingspan measurement is around 57 inches, and this is running around 19 inches for height. That is what she asked for. So you can either leave your neckline raw like this, or you can attach your yarn and put a nice little border of single crochets around it. What we're going to do is we're going to go on the good side of the work. So try to designate, if you want to designate a good side and a back side. Okay, this is the good side. Okay, let me find my neck here. So what you're going to do is I use my smaller hook size, and I like to attach right in a corner. So you're just gonna attach your yarn with a slip knot, tie that off. We can chain 1, and then we're just gonna put a single crochet in each of the holes. Now, when you have a larger hole, I would put 2 single crochets, and then I would put 1 single crochet right between our 2 double crochet stitches, and then 2 single crochets in the chain 2 space. 1 single crochet in between the 2 double crochet stitches, 2 single crochets. I hope I've been saying single crochets. These are single crochets. And then 1 single crochet between the 2 double crochets, and then 2 single crochets, 1 single crochet. So keep doing that pattern. And then when you are going around the side, just if it's a larger space, put 2. If it's a smaller space, put 1. This is going to give you a nice finished look on your collar. And again, we're doing just single crochets. And this is optional. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to. And also, if for some reason your neck hole is too large, then you can just make it a little bit smaller by decreasing here and there to make your neck opening smaller. So that's a little hint, a little tip. If you ever have a neckline, if you've ever made a poncho or a shawl or anything that has sort of a neck hole, and you need to make the neck hole smaller, just attach your yarn and go around with single crochets and just decrease a little bit, and that will just give you a nice finished look, but it will also just cinch it up. And if you need to decrease here and there, that'll make it even smaller. All right, so okay, we've reached the other side of our neckline here, and I have a larger hole here, so I'm going to put 2. I have a smaller hole here, so I'm going to put 1. I have a big hole here, so I'm going to put 2. And then once you get around, then you're going to do just that same pattern that you have been doing. And if you did any decreases, maybe on the front side, just try to do the same on the back. Oops, I think I put an extra one there. So again, we're putting 2 single crochets in this space between where we had a chain 2, and I'm putting just 1 single crochet between the double crochet stitches. This is going to give me a very nice looking collar neckline. And then as soon as this is done, I will show you how to do the fringe. And let me know in the comments how you have liked this tutorial. I hope I've gone at a pretty good speed for you guys. Again, if any time you need to speed up, you can use the timestamps or just hold down on the screen to go twice as fast. Or if you need to slow down the video at all, you can just click the screen and adjust the playback speed. Okay, here's where we started. So we're just continuing this all along. And then you're just going to pull out your yarn a little bit, cut your yarn. I like to do an invisible seam. So just pull your yarn out, grab your yarn needle, and we are going from the front towards the back. We're going to skip over the very first stitch and go into the next stitch from front to back through the entire stitch. Pull to the back, pull your yarn back to the front, again going from the front to the back, but we're going to go on the top, the very center of the V. Go in that very center, not through the whole stitch, right straight through the center, and make sure it goes into that back bump. Pull from the front to the back. Just even up that stitch, and then you can just tie off your yarn. I always like to put a little knot and then just weave in your work, weave in that tail. And whenever I'm making a collar, I try to weave down a little bit so it doesn't end up sticking up and showing on the collar, which can happen sometimes if your yarn gets a little looser. That end might pop up. So just try to weave down a little bit so that it is not as noticeable. Okay, we're going to have another end here from where we first started around the collar. Just like that, and trim all your ends, and just make sure all of your ends are weaved in if you've connected your skeins in the middle of your project to add more yarn. Just make sure that you weave in all of your ends, and let me show you how to do the fringe. Okay, so I do have this fringe maker. I bought this years ago at a craft fair, over 25 years ago, but they sell similar ones online, and they are just fringe or bow makers, pom-pom makers, and you just pull this out and adjust it as needed. That'll give you the measurement here, but you do not need one of these. You can just use a ruler. You can wrap it around a box, a piece of plastic or wood or cardboard, whatever you want. And you're going to cut your fringe, so I'm going to take some out here and show you. So you're going to cut your fringe, cut your yarn as long as you want it. So if you want 5-inch fringe, you're going to cut 10-inch pieces of yarn, and you're going to pick it up like this. You can do 2, 3, 4, 5, it doesn't matter. So pick up your little bundles of yarn, and you're going to take your crochet hook, and you are going to determine where you want your fringe and place your hook in that hole. You're going to grab onto the folded end of your yarn and pull it through that hole. Stick your hand through that hole. You're going to line up your ends of your yarn. That'll make it easier. And then you're going to pinch the ends with your finger and pull it through that hole. And that is how you make your fringe on your items. So you can do this for the scarf, for the shawl, for the poncho. You can add your fringe to the poncho. Fringe is optional, so if you do not want fringe, you don't have to add fringe. You can add fringe to one side, 2 sides, 3 sides, 4 sides. It's all up to you. Okay, so that is the end of our tutorial. So let me show you what this poncho looks like. And you can wear it like this. Okay, so I have my chain of multiples of 4, and now I'm going to make a half double crochet. I'm going into the second chain from the hook, and this time I'm going into the back bump. Going into the back bump will give a cleaner look for your crochet scarf. Okay, I'm going to try to give you a close-up. So you yarn over, and then you're turning your chain, and you're just picking up this back bump here. It's hard to see. Let me get a needle. Okay, so if you turn your chain towards you, you will see a bump. You're going to see a bump right here in the back. So this is a different way that you can make your first row down into your chain. And you can use this technique on any stitch that you need to go back into your chain, and it will just give you a cleaner look. For those of you who are beginners, it might be a little difficult for you. It does take a little bit more time, but it gives you a nice finished edge. So I really like the edge when I do this going into the back bump. Again, this is an option for you, but It'll just give you a nice clean look. So do this all the way to the end of the row. Okay, so I just want to show you the difference in look. So this is going into the back bump. It gives you such a clean edge. And for those of you who do not like to go into the back bump, you can just normally go right into the front of your stitch, and you can make your chain as well doing that. But I just wanted to give you the option. So again, if you're doing a regular stitch, it's going to look like this. Right there, those last two stitches were right through the front of the stitch. Or you can do like I am doing, just to show you a different variation, which is optional, is to do your half double crochet into this back bump right here. And it can be a little hard to see, especially with darker colors, but it just makes your initial row looks so much nicer. Whoops, I got caught up there. So just continue. I'm just continuing going into my back bump, and I will meet you at the end of this row. Okay, I'm on my last stitch here, and again I'm doing half double crochets in the back bump only for this first row. And again, this is optional, so if you don't like it or don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. You can just go into the regular stitches right here. And I like to just tighten up the end where we started, where the tail is. I just like to tighten that up at the end of my row. So here's the end of the row, and I did back bumps only. Again, that's optional. Okay, so we are going to chain up 2, and we're going to turn our work. And now we're just going to do regular half double crochets. I'm going to go right into that very first stitch, and we are not counting the turning chain. We're going to count this very first stitch. So place a stitch marker right at the top of your stitch here. Going to place a stitch marker right at the top of that stitch, so that when we come back around, it'll be very easy for us to find this stitch. And we're not counting the turning chain as a stitch. Okay, so just place your half double crochets in the front of the stitch, or as a variation, you can place your half double crochets again, this time putting them in the back part of the loop of the stitch. So let me show you what that looks like. So if you want to put your half double crochet right in the center of your stitch, you would do it just as normal. Or if you want to try a variation on the border stitches, you can just loop your hook and go into the back loop. Let me show you where that is. The V of our stitch is right here, and the back loop is right here. The third loop is behind here, but the back loop is right here. So we have our front loop of our stitch and our back loop of our stitch, and that's just another variation that you can do. So don't be afraid to play around with your border stitches. But I'm just going to do another row right in the front regular portion of our stitch with half double crochets all the way along this row. And I will see you at the end, and this is what it is looking like. Okay, we're getting to the end of our row, and see what a nice border this looks like going into that initial row in the back bumps. It just makes it look so nice. Okay, so we're just continuing putting our half double crochets into every single stitch across the row. And don't forget that very last stitch to go into here. It's easy to forget that very last stitch. This will help us keep our count right. Okay, that's why we marked that very last stitch of ours. All right, so we have gotten to the end of the row, and we're going to finish using our smaller hook. So we're going to our larger size hook. For those of you who want to make this all in the same size hook, that is perfectly fine. I just like to do my border in a smaller hook. Okay, so we're going up to, I have gone up to my 6.5 millimeter, but again, you can just use whatever hook is corresponding to your size yarn. It's fine. All right, so we're going to chain 3 at the end of this row, and that is our turning chain. And this turning chain is counting as our first double crochet of this row. So we're going to place another double crochet, not into this first stitch, but into this second stitch of the row. We're going to put a double crochet, just like that. So here is our first double crochets of the row. This chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and we've got a second one. So we chain 2, skip 2, and we're doing a double crochet into the next stitch. And then we're doing a double crochet into the following stitch. So we have our chain 3, which counts as our first double crochet, another double crochet in the next stitch. We're chaining 2, skipping 2 stitches, and then we put 2 double crochets in the next 2 stitches. And we're going to chain 2, skip 2 stitches, and then put 2 double crochets into the next 2 stitches. So we have 1 in 1 stitch, and we're going to put our next double crochet in the next stitch. Okay, let me show you that on the table so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so here is what your work should look like at this point. Okay, so we're just going to continue that pattern of chain 2, skip 2 stitches, and placing 2 double crochets in the next 2 stitches. So 1 double crochet in 1 stitch, and then in the next stitch, another double crochet. Okay, so continue this all the way down the row, and I will meet you at the end of the row. Okay, so we're at the end of the row, and I just wanted to show you we're doing chain 2, skip 2, 2 double crochet in the next 2 stitches. And if for some reason you have an extra stitch or a stitch too short, don't worry about it, just make it work. Okay, so we did 2 double crochets here, and we're chaining 2, skipping 2 here. And then we're putting 2 double crochets in these very 2 last stitches, and we have our last stitch marked. Again, if for some reason your count is off, don't worry about it, just make it work. You can put 2 double crochets into 1 stitch or combine stitches, but this is what it should look like at the end of the row. Okay, and now we're going to chain 3 and turn our work. And from now on, we're just repeating. So we're going to not put a double crochet in the first stitch, we're going into the second stitch, because now we're just repeating the same thing from the previous row. So that chain 3 counts as our first double crochet of the row. We did a double crochet in the very next stitch. Here's our first stitch with our chain 3 counting as a double crochet, and then we have our first double crochet that we made into the second stitch, and then we're chaining 2, skipping 2 of the chain stitches right here, and we're placing a double crochet right over the double crochet stitches from the previous row. So you're going right on the top of those double crochet stitches. This is what it should look like. Okay, so now we're just going to repeat that same pattern going all the way across. So we're going to chain 2, we're going to skip over these 2 chains in the middle, and we're just placing 2 double crochets over the double crochets from the previous row. Just like that. You're going to continue all the way, and you're just going to repeat these rows. So you're just repeating the chain 3, turn, and then double crochet in the second stitch, chain 2, skip 2, 2 double crochets over these 2 double crochets, chain 2, skip this space, 2 double crochets over the previous double crochets. So just continue, and I will meet you at the end of the row. Okay, so we're coming to the end of row 4 here, I believe, that we are on, or whatever row that we are on. I think it's row 4 because we did 2 rows of border, and then we are on the second row of the body of the pattern. And this is how you do the scarf and the shawl the exact same way. You just stop earlier for the scarf. We're coming up on the end here. We're just repeating what we see from the row before. So we're placing our 2 double crochets over the 2 double crochets, and then chain 2, skip 2. Here's our last 2 double crochets right here. That's our last stitch right there. So go right into the top of that chain 3, just like that. So that is the last stitch of the row, and we're going to chain 3 and turn our work. Sorry, I'm trying to work through the camera, over the camera, and not touch the table because it's shaking. Okay, so we turned our work, and we're just going to continue that last row over and over and over again. Okay, so we're skipping over that first double crochet. We're placing our first double crochet in the second stitch, right over the second crochet from the previous row, just like that. We're chain 2, skip 2. We're going to skip over this chain section. We're going to place 2 double crochets right over the previous row. Double crochets. And you're just going to continue this. So continue row 4 over and over and over again. You're just stacking your double crochets and your chains right over the previous row. Remember that we're counting this chain 3 as our first double crochet here. So continue along, and you're just going to keep going until you're happy with the width of your, or the height of your scarf. Okay, so this way we've been already doing the length, and now we're working on going up on our scarf to get it to that measurement that we want. And then when you get to the measurement you want for your scarf, you're going to change back to your smaller hook, chain 2 at the end of the row, and then you're going to put another 2 rows of the half double crochet for your border. And then you can add fringe, and I show you on the end of the poncho where to add the fringe, but when I get to the end of this body section, I'm going to meet you back to show you how to do this border, and then I will show you how to add fringe to your scarf. Okay guys, I am at the end of my row, and this is what I have left of my number 1 cake. So I think I'm at the point now where I need to switch back to the border. So if you want a longer scarf, or you're doing a shawl, you're going to need 2 or 3 or even 4 maybe cakes, but this is my 1 cake scarf, and at the end I'll give you the dimensions of my scarf. I'm at the very end. I still have my larger hook, and we've got to chain 2, skip the chains. We're going into the top of the stitches for the double crochets, chain 2, skip 2 chains. Okay, here's our last 2 double crochets right here. Okay, so those are our last 2 double crochet stitches for this row, and I have done the 2 border rows, and then I have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of these mesh rows. And then now we're going to change our hook back to our smaller hook. Again, if you did not want to use 2 different size hooks, that's fine. Okay, so I've gone back to my smaller hook, which is a size 6, and I'm going to chain 2 and turn our work. I'm going to put my yarn in my little plastic container on the floor so it doesn't flop around. Okay, so we've turned our work, and now we're just going to do half double crochets. So I'm just going to count that last the turning chain as the first stitch. I'm going into the very next stitch with a half double crochet, just like that. And let me take a shot of that. Okay, so this is what it looks like. We're just turning and we're putting our first half double crochet stitch into the next stitch, just like that. Okay, and now we're just going to continue doing half double crochets all the way across our row. So what I like to do is just do yarn over and do 2 half double crochets in the chain 2 space right over those stitches, just like that. And then do your double crochets right over your 2 double crochets from the previous stitch, just like that. And then just continue that. So we're putting 2 half double crochets in the chain 2 space. And then we're putting a half double crochet on the tops of our double crochets in the row. So this is what it will look like. And you're going to continue this all the way down the row. So we are at the end of the row of our first border for our final border. And we are just going to do half double crochets into these 2 last double crochet stitches. There's our last one right there. And then we are going to chain 2, turn our work, and now we are going to do a half double crochet into every stitch. So I am going to count that turning chain as the first stitch, and I'm going to go into the next one with a half double crochet. So we're just doing a half double crochet into every single stitch, going across, just like that. So continue doing your half double crochet into every single stitch until we get to the end of the row, and then I will show you how to add the fringe. Okay, we're at the end of the row of the scarf. So we're just placing our half double crochets into every single stitch on the border. And if you need to steam or block your scarf at all, you can do that. And I really recommend when you start doing that first row in the back bump, that'll give you a nice flat border on your first border. And this is the end of the second border, the end of our scarf. And you're going to weave in all of your ends. And if you've changed yarn at all, you might have some ends straggling in the middle of your piece. So just grab your yarn and weave in those ends nicely so they do not show. So let me show you how I add my fringe. I have this fringe maker, but you do not need to use one of these. You can find these on Amazon. If you don't have one of these, you can just use a book or a ruler and just measure out 12 inches. If you want 6-inch fringe, or 10 inches if you want 5-inch fringe. All I do is I wrap my yarn around this fringe maker. So I have these pieces of fringe that are about 12 inches long. That's all you need, or whatever length you want your fringe. Your fringe is going to be roughly half the length of your cut pieces of yarn. Just grouping them as groups of 4, but you can do less or more. So I just take my pieces of yarn, and I am right at the end of my ball here. At the end, I'll take measurements and show you what 1 cake of yarn will make for a scarf. Obviously, if I had more yarn, I could have made this wider, longer and wider. And if I'd have kept going taller height, I could have made a shawl out of this. I wanted to see if I could make just a scarf out of 1 cake of the Roll With It yarn, and so that's what I've been doing. Hopefully my phone will last. So I'm gonna grab more yarn. So I'm just bundling them in groups of 4. Again, you could do more or less, or longer or shorter. Okay. And what you're going to do, again, you're going to fold your yarn that you're holding in your hand in half. You're going to insert your hook into wherever you want your fringe to be. I'm putting it in every row. Then you pull your yarn through, and you just want to line up all of your pieces of your ends. It just makes it so much easier. Pinch it and pull it through that circle like this. Right through there like that. And then if you need to trim any of your ends, it's so simple to do it now. Okay, let me see if I have enough for another one. Okay, fold your yarn in half like this. Insert your hook where you want your fringe to be. Grab that loop, pull it through, grab it with your hands, and you're just going to even up your ends. I think this is so much easier than trying to cut it after. All right, so just pinch the end and pull all of those ends through. You're just looping the yarn through that hole, and then trim off any yarn that needs to be trimmed. Okay, so I have a couple more, so I'm going to finish these and then show you what the measurements are. Just finished my last piece of fringe that I added here, and this is what I have left of my cake that I started with in my autograph. So you do use an entire skein of cake for your scarf, and let me show you what it looks like and do some measurements. Hey guys, look how beautiful this scarf came out. It is just gorgeous. So I just steamed it. This is exactly what your shawl would look like, except it would be wider. The height would be wider, so it would be, you know, just as wide as you wanted it to be. When I measured it, it was around 72 inches long. So the wingspan was about 72 inches. Width, or the height, was about 10 inches. So my scarf is about 10 tall like this by 72 long, and it has the 6-inch fringe. Look how gorgeous the fringe looks. Once you steam it, it's just nice and straight and gorgeous. So beautiful. I just love it. Love, love, love it. It came out so gorgeous, and it's so nice and soft. So let me show what it looks like on. And of course, if you made this wider, it would be just a gorgeous shawl. Just the perfect shawl pattern. It is a scarf. Isn't this so gorgeous? So guys, I hope you love these patterns. So you can make, again, you can make a scarf, you can make a shawl, and you can make the gorgeous poncho. So I hope you love these beautiful patterns. They are great for spring, winter, and fall, and I hope you love them so much. Let me know in the comments which is your favorite project, if you tried any, and I hope you love the tutorial, and I'll see you on the next video.